The wind has a way of talking to this house. Sometimes it howls, sometimes it sighs. Today it's whispering through the cracks in the old window panes like it has secrets it's not quite ready to share. I wrap the cardigan tighter around my waist, stare at the blinking cursor on my laptop screen, and feel like the wind and I are kindred spirits, full of things unsaid. I've been here nearly 3 weeks. The house belonged to my grandmother, and then my mother, and now to me, though I still feel like a guest sometimes, like the wood beneath my feet remembers different footsteps. I told everyone I was coming here to finish my third novel. Truth is, I haven't written a full sentence in days, maybe weeks. Just a parade of false starts and deleted paragraphs. A lot of tea, a lot of walks to nowhere. I wasn't expecting a booking. I'd forgotten the listing was even active. So when the doorbell rang that afternoon, I stared at it like it had grown there. The calendar said Thursday. The sky said rain. I opened the door with the dull expectation of a lost delivery. And there she was. She looked like she just stepped out of a different story entirely. Hair damp from the rain, cheeks flushed from the cold, a burst of sunshine and sea air in the doorway. She carried an oversized backpack and an old Polaroid camera slung across her chest like a piece of jewelry. "Hi," she said, breathless. "You must be Ivy." I just blinked at her, unsure whether I'd invited a forest sprite into my home or just forgotten how to speak to humans. "I'm Cleo," she added. "Sorry I'm early. The bus was faster than expected. I didn't want to just stand outside and look suspicious." "You're wet," I said, instead of welcome. She smiled like that didn't bother her in the slightest. "Yeah, the sky opened up about halfway here. I smell like damp socks and citrus, but I come bearing wine and a strong appreciation for warm floors." I stepped aside without quite meaning to. That night, I told myself I'd stay out of her way. She was only here for a couple nights, and I needed the space to work, whatever that meant anymore. I warned her about the quirks of the house, the bathroom door that sticks, the floorboard in the hallway that shrieks if you look at it wrong. She laughed like it was a campfire story, not a warning. She made herself tea and started humming, just like that, as if she belonged. I watched from the doorway as she moved around the kitchen with the kind of ease I hadn't felt since childhood, like she already knew where everything was. Her humming wasn't in any key I could name, but it had a rhythm. I found myself lingering longer than I meant to. That night, I told myself again, aloof, distant, a closed book. But in the morning, when I brewed my coffee, I made a second cup and left it on the counter, just in case. The next morning, she was still there. She had made eggs. Badly. The smell of slightly singed yolk filled the kitchen, and I stood there for a moment watching her try to scrape them off the pan with a wooden spoon that was never meant for scraping. "You're not checking out today?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Cleo turned, unapologetically. "I was hoping I could stay one more night, unless you've got someone else coming." I didn't. I hadn't had a booking in months. "Sure," I said, and tried to sound casual, like it didn't matter either way. It happened again the next day. "Just one more," she said, holding up her 2 fingers and a peace sign like she was bartering. I didn't ask why. Didn't ask what she was running from or toward. But I stopped deleting the extra cup of coffee from the grocery list. We began sharing evenings. She didn't ask about the novel. I didn't ask about the Polaroid camera that followed her everywhere like a second pair of eyes. We found a rhythm. She cooked. I cleaned. We drank whatever red or white we had the least of. She told stories about the places she'd been: islands, hostels, trains, always a different name at each stop. "I used to want to be a travel writer," she confessed once, eyes fixed on her wine glass. "But someone I loved told me my words lacked weight, like they couldn't land anywhere." I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing. Later, I told her I hadn't written anything new in months. Every time I try, it feels fake, like I'm writing what people expect, not what I mean. I hesitated, and then added, "I think I'm afraid to write what I actually want to say." She looked at me then, not the way people look when they're waiting to speak, but the way they look when they want you to keep going. We started trading bits of ourselves. I told her about my first book, about how it sold well but not well enough to buy freedom. She told me about her ex-girlfriend who stayed in one place and expected her to do the same. About the little apartment in Lyon she gave up, the job she walked away from. She said, "I never finish anything," with a half laugh, like it wasn't quite a joke. "Maybe you just haven't found the ending yet," I offered. One night, I left my notebook on the kitchen table. I didn't mean for her to read it. It wasn't even a draft, just fragments and phrases, most of them crossed out. A story about a woman who spends her days in silence, afraid to love again. The next morning, Cleo was gone. No goodbye, no text, nothing but her camera, sitting on the table where the notebook had been. I opened it on instinct, as if the last photo might hold a message. But the film slot was empty. Later that day, I noticed something in the margin of my pages, in different handwriting, in ink I didn't own. What if she stops being afraid? I stared at the words until they blurred. And then I stared at the door. The house was too quiet without her. I told myself it was ridiculous, how empty it felt. She had only been here a week, maybe 10 days, but her absence felt like someone had taken the color out of the walls. I found myself listening for the off-key humming that never quite resolved into a melody. I opened the cabinet and saw the chipped mug she always used, and closed it again. I didn't write, not at first. I stared at the same sentence on the screen for hours. I walked the shoreline until my boots were soaked through. I made 2 cups of coffee every morning, then poured one down the sink. Every night, I thought about texting her. Every morning, I didn't. The camera sat on the table like it was waiting. I tried to ignore it, but on the 3rd day, I picked it up. It was heavier than it looked, warm from the sunlight through the window. I almost didn't check the film compartment, but I did. There were photos, 8 of them, all tucked together, imperfect and fading around the edges. The first few were simple: the curve of the staircase, the chipped green door, the view from the upstairs window with the sea stretching far and unreachable, the kind of images you take when you want to remember a place, even if you don't know why. And then I saw the others. One of me, asleep on the couch, a book folded on my chest. Another half-lit, catching me through the kitchen doorway, laughing at something, head tilted back, eyes closed. The last photo was of my writing desk. Empty page, pen poised, a single beam of light falling across the paper. I sat down hard on the floor, photos scattered around me like breadcrumbs. Cleo had seen me, not the polished version I used to send to editors, not the author bio. She had seen the unmade bed, the untied thoughts, the way I tried to be invisible even in my own home. And still, she left. I wanted to shut down, to crawl back into the cold routines I'd spent years perfecting, to pack the camera away, pretend the week never happened. But every time I tried, my eyes returned to the line she had written in the margin. What if she stops being afraid? That night, I wrote. Not fiction, not even well, but truth. It started as a letter, though I didn't know where to send it. Then it became something else, maybe an essay, maybe a confession. I called it The Woman Who Stayed. I didn't name her. I didn't need to. I published it on my website the next morning. No fanfare, no announcement, just the quiet post beneath the books I hadn't updated in a year. And when it asked me for a tagline, I typed, "To the woman who stayed in my home and left something behind." Then I closed my laptop and watched the sea until the light went gold. A week passed. Then two. I told myself I didn't care, that I'd written what I needed to write, and that was enough. But I still checked the site traffic every morning. I still looked for her name in the Airbnb app, even though I knew she wouldn't use it. And then, one Thursday afternoon, I got a booking. The name was different. Male. No profile picture. One night stay. Something in me seized up. I hovered over the decline button. My fingers itched. I didn't want to host anyone. Not anymore. Not now. But I didn't decline. When the bell rang, it was raining again. I opened the door. There she was. Same backpack, same camera, though it hung a little lower now, like it had gathered weight. Her hair was damp and curling around her face, cheeks pink from the chill. She looked up at me like someone hoping not to be turned away. "I wasn't sure you'd open the door," Cleo said softly. "I almost didn't," I admitted. "You left." "I got scared," she said, eyes not quite meeting mine, "of what I was feeling, of staying too long, of ruining something before it could be anything. You could have said goodbye. I didn't know how." Silence stretched between us, thin as glass. Then she added, "I read it, the story." My throat tightened. She stepped forward, still on the threshold, like she needed permission to cross. I didn't think I could be someone worth writing about. Not really. I thought I was just passing through. "You aren't," I said quietly. "You were someone worth writing to." Her breath caught, just barely. I could see it happen. Neither of us moved for a long moment, and then I stepped aside. Inside, the house felt warmer, though I hadn't touched the thermostat. She took off her backpack and placed the camera on the table again, like we were picking up where we left off, but not in the same place. Later, I showed her the Polaroids. She laughed at one of them, me in mismatched socks, holding a bowl of popcorn like I just remembered how joy worked. "I forgot I took that," she murmured. "I didn't." She stayed the night, and the next. We didn't label anything. We didn't have to. We began again, not as host and guest, not as writer and wanderer, but as two women who had found something rare, a story they both wanted to stay inside of. There's a new piece on my desk now. No title yet, but the last paragraph is done. Cleo sits by the window in the afternoon light, her knees pulled up to her chest, a blanket draped around her shoulders. I watch her sometimes, not to memorize, but to remind myself. This is what it looks like when you stop being afraid.